Hello, Crusaders! Welcome to the first edition, maybe the only edition, depending on how I feel after this, of Board Game Crusaders video tutorials. This should give you everything you need to play a game, because if you're like me, you absolutely hate going through instruction manuals and reading the games, and then years down the line when you decide to crack it open again, having to do the same thing again. This should hopefully be able to give you a good reference so you can get in and start playing. Maybe your memory will kick in for the rest. Maybe you'll need to reference the rules a little bit, but I hope this helps either way. So BattleLore 2nd Edition, very easy game, very fun, very quick paced. So let's begin. The first step is setting up. Before we set up, I guess we need to see how the board is broken down. It's broken down into 3 sections divided by red lines. It's got the right, the center, the left flank. Initially, when you get the board, none of that good stuff is going to be on it. That's part of setup. You're just going to see a blank board resembling what this lower half looks like. You will then use these. Each faction has their own unique stack, and decide what you're going to be doing for the mission and how the setup goes. In these, you have the red spots in this faction, the blue spots in this faction, indicating where you will place your units. You place your units with these cards in combination with these cards. The reason you have decoys and regular cards is at the beginning of the game. You will lay the cards down face down in all of your red or blue spaces, wherever applicable. And that way your opponent doesn't know where your soldiers are going and you don't know where their soldiers are going. You reveal at the same time where everything's going. So it's a pretty sleek system. These, there are about 8 per side that you can mix and match. The ways to start out are you can just randomly generate 1 per side, or you can draw 3 and choose 1. Or if you have a favorite, you can just pop it out and the other person pops theirs out. Or you can match up D2 and D2, D1 and D2, C1, D2. I guess the D's and the C's all match. So you can make a scenario that way. In the scenario, it gives you a specific victory condition that's exclusive to your side and exclusive bonuses exclusive to your side. Each scenario has different bonuses and different victory conditions, with the exception, of course, of these ones, which are universal. Everybody gets them. They stay on the board. If you're in the spot controlling it, you get that victory point. And then, of course, whatever you get for the scenario. And there's lots of scenarios. They're all different. They vary it up. When building your army, use 50 points. It comes with 3 cards per faction, giving you an idea of what you can do with your 50 points right off the bat if you wanted to. These cards, back again, have a gold number which reference how many points that unit is worth. So in this build out, it has 3 blood harvesters, which totals 12 points. You get up to 50. There you go. If you have any extra points, you fill them with lore, which is the currency or the mana or whatever you want to use for the game. When starting the game, you'll notice they are lettered and numbered, as I said. Whoever has the lowest alphabetical lettering, in combination with the number if needed, gets to have this little token and be the first player. First player comes in place, a couple places when tallying victory points and also starting the game. Obviously, you get to move first. We'll go over that more later. This is your headquarters. If you decide to use your headquarters, you get to start with 55 build points instead of 50. Good little advantage there. Although it can also be a disadvantage if your enemy takes or captures that by remaining inside for one of your turns. So they take it on their turn, you don't reclaim it on your turn, they have it at the beginning of their turn, they get 2 victory points, and this gets removed from the board. It's kind of a one-time quick 2 victory point thing. Also, if you decide to start with this, for example, in this scenario, on the right flank, you can start in this spot, this spot, this spot, this spot, or this spot. Let's pretend like this is that scenario. If you put your base right here, that means you can only start on this row and below. So even though you may be inclined to put it far back so that your opponent can't get to it, if you do, you cannot start as well either. You want to put it as far forward as you can. Maybe not, your strategy. But you can only place from here back if you decide to play with this. If you don't, you only get 50 points, but you know, it's all good either way. When looking at your units, let's move down to these cards. So there's this set of cards that you place face down when you're building your army. This double-sided set, it's the same on both sides, that tells you what each unit does, whether it's an infantry, an archer, a ranged attack, if it has any special abilities, its movement, its attack, meaning how many dice it gets to roll, its health, meaning how many hits it can take. Its range, it also has this 1 to 4 icon in it, or 1 to 3, or whatever its range is. That means it can hit from 1 to X if it's ranged. If it's not ranged, that'll go away. Also, you'll notice on some of the big guys, there's this little blood mark. That's because this guy is massive. He takes up a whole hex by himself, and his health is 6, which means you put 6 of these lovely little blood mark tokens either on his base or on his card to indicate his damage. Whereas these guys, the rest of the guys, the units, have a health of 3, which means you place 3 guys in a hex, and that's the unit. As he takes damage, you remove a guy. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. That is initially what you need to build out your map. Again, you want to choose your scenarios first, because sometimes there's special abilities in there that impact what units you want. Like cavalry can go through water when normally they can't, or other things that may impact. I've only played a couple of games, so that's the only example that comes to mind. So, next we will talk about the tokens, the boards, and what the terrain does. However, before we get to that, I would be remorse if I didn't kind of further explain something that I think is obvious, but you never know. So, each person picks their scenario, and they get placed like that. So that's how you make the map, essentially. This half builds his side, this half builds his side. There you go. So now that I've covered that obvious detail, let's move on to the terrain. First we have a forest hex. Forest hex is a blocking terrain. It blocks line of sight. In fact, so is the hill and the building, and so are these. Another thing the forest has is once you enter it, you stop movement. Same with this, same with this, same with this, and I believe same with that. But with the forest, more specifically, if you're in the forest, your attack dice are resolved down to 2. So, if you would only have an attack of 3, your attack becomes 2, plus any modifiers you have, as well as attacking into the forest. Anything attacking into the forest is also reduced to 2. So the forest can be a good strategy to use. Streams, you cannot cross unless it's got the forge or the bridge. If it does have the forge, you must stop movement immediately once you hit that square. You can continue to attack in the attack phase if you need to, but you can't move any further. Bridges allow you to just cross simply without any interruption. Whenever you're placing tiles, if you have a stream in your scenario, just like this one, you get to place one forge on your half of the map on the streams. Unless your scenario specifies you get a bridge. That's when the bridges come into play. We've already pretty much covered those. They're blocking terrain. The building is awesome. Very awesome blocking terrain. You don't know much about attacking yet, but you get to ignore one effect from each individual attack. So if 3 different people attack you, let's just say, without any knowledge of the game, this was rolled. That would only make you retreat out of the spot and take a damage and to have a special ability activated. Since all 3 are separate events, they're all ignored. Now, had it been rolled like this, then you'd take 1 damage. And that's from each attack. So if, say, the golems attack you and they do that, you avoid that. And then say the archers attack you and they do that. Even though you've already avoided one of these, you get to avoid it again because it's a new attack. It's a new unit. And then each turn, it refreshes. So every time you're attacked in a building, they essentially have to roll doubles to be any effect at all. It's pretty awesome. Hills are good because while you're on a hill, you can avoid, or you can look over enemies that would normally block line of sight. Now blocking terrain still blocks, but enemies or friends that are normally in the way would not be in the way. This is an objective point. It comes in 1 and 2s. Basically they stay on the board. If you control that hex, you get the victory points. These are the generic ones I told you about that anyone can take advantage of. BattleLore tokens. These are the money or the mana of the game. You collect those, as I'll explain later. These are the victory tokens. They come in 1 and 5s. You collect those by holding the victory token places on the map or getting your unique objective that's in your objective that you chose, your scenario. That's a hit marker. We already talked about that. These are unique to the red team. It's a poison counter that your archers can cause, and that is a swarm token that you can cause with your BattleLore cards if you pay for them. This is for the good guys. It's got a stun, which the golems do, and a portal, which is a card you can draw and play. I believe that is everything with the tokens. The only thing I would recommend with the tokens is getting some glass tokens as well, so that you can kind of mark when people have made a movement, because when the gameplay progresses, you make all of your movements with all of your agents or I guess units that are moving, and then do all of the attacks. So it does come in handy to mark the units that have moved, so you can keep track of who gets to attack when it comes time for that. I found that to be pretty handy and useful. So starting cards, you gather 4, I guess, command cards and 2 BattleLore cards. You can only ever have 4 of these, and I find it impossible to get more than 4. And you can only ever have 4 of these as well. But starting hand is 2 and 4. Let's see. So now we'll kind of go over some battle examples, some turn advancement. And this is referenced on the back of one of the 2 sets of instructions. Again, this game has, I don't know if this is again, so it's got a basic rule set that I'm covering, which you shouldn't need to open at all. I should have all this referenced. And then it'll have the quick reference with the advanced rulebook, which is amazing. All it is a glossary, optional rules, and index quick reference to help clarify things as you're in the heat of the battle. Really good stuff. We'll cover die rolls now. Die rolls are as follows. This causes a unit to retreat. This lets you gather the BattleLore. 1 for every time you roll it. This does melee damage. This also does melee damage. The difference is, if you have a weakened unit, this will not do melee damage, where this still will. A weakened unit is when you've got your unit of 3, and if it's taken 2 damage and it's only got 1 figure, that's a weakened unit. The archery, I guess the target, the bullseye, is what the archers hit with. And this crown thing is activating special abilities as they apply. And I think that's going to cover all the dice rolls. Now we can really go into the movement. So the first phase of gameplay is your command phase. You move all your guys. That's simply done by playing command cards. They come in a couple different flavors. There's these kind of unique ones that let you do awesome things. Like this one lets you move 3 archers from anywhere on the board that you control. And if they don't move when it comes to the attack phase, they get to roll double dice, which is amazing. Or they get 2 attack stages, I guess, technically. And then the rest of them, the ones that aren't awesome, are usually like this. Has a number on the flank indicating where you get to move. So 1 from the left flank, 2 from the middle, 1 from the right. And they're all kind of randomly drawn. You decide which one you want to play. Let's say we wanted to play this one, for example. It is also very straightforward as far as where you play. So if I'm playing this on this side of the board, I'm moving within this zone. If I come over to the other side of the board, and I were to play the same card, as you can probably imagine, it would be this portion of the board. So they do make it quick and easy that way as well. But let's say it's these guys' turn. They're going to play this card, and they're going to move 2 people from this section. If it's along this red line, some of them are, they're considered on both sides. So You can pick and choose how you want to move them accordingly. But on to the battle demonstration to do some line of sight. So let's say I'm going to move these guys. They're going to go up the forge, and they have to stop, but they can attack. Not that they'd want to move any further anyway, they're in a good attacking position. And then come to these archers. They're not going to move, they're just going to go for these guys. So let's demonstrate a little battle. So these guys get a 3 attack dice. They hit for 1, and if there's a special ability, they get it. So we're not going over the special abilities now. They're pretty straightforward, pretty obvious. They're all indicated on the card. So it took out 1 guy. Now, since this team isn't eliminated and they were not forced to retreat, they get to retaliate, which means they get to roll their attack. They get a BattleLore, do a damage, and get their special ability. So it's pretty evened up. Let's see what that could have done in another scenario. Let's say as the red guys, instead of rolling like that, or even as the blue guys, it doesn't matter if you're retaliating or attacking. If you hit them with a flag, or you kill all their guys, so there's nobody in that square, essentially like this, you get to move in once per attack. So these, if it's close quarters attack, range attacks don't get that effect. But close quarters melee attacks, they get to do that once per attack. So these guys have already done it, they can't beat them back anymore. Now let's pretend like from back here, they got all 3 retreats. So the retreat works, they have to go in the logical straight back from the angle they're attacked at. 1, 2, and then they can't go back any further because they hit a wall, or maybe they hit this rock if it was coming at this angle, or this hindering terrain, I guess, that makes them stop their turn. They would immediately take damage for all the spots they cannot fall back. So they would take 1 damage in that case. And then you'd still be able to gain the 1 spot there. Range is pretty straightforward as well. So the way range is going to work, normally these guys would be in the way, so we wouldn't be able to see them. But again, they're on the hill, the river doesn't block line of sight, so they're going to be able to just shoot here straight forward. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Now if they were right here, for another example, and they wanted to attack, say, let's say these guys right here, they would be able to do that, because if it's going across the line and it's only hitting 1, I guess, building, then it's good. It's good line of sight, because if it goes across the line, you basically pick a side that you're going to shoot from to trace how they get hit and where they fall back, if they have to fall back. So if I'm shooting from here, it's going to hit them here, and they'd fall back here. But, on the other hand, if there were a situation like this, or rather this, where it's going across this line, and there's 1 on each side, it's blocking line of sight. If they were both on this side, it'd be okay, because they could still go from here. So that's kind of the ins and outs of line of sight. It goes from the center to the center. As long as there's nothing blocking, they're good. As far as pushback goes, this brings to another point. Let's pretend like these guys are here and I did get pushed back. They've got units behind them supporting them, so they will not be pushed back. Another good strategy there if you want to play with it. So, that is the command phase, the order step, and the movement step, and the attack step. Next is the upkeep phase. After all is said and done, you determine how many victory points you're going to get based on where your guys are standing, what they've done. You gather your victory points, put them in a stack in front of you. Then your draw step, you draw 1 more of these lore cards, add it to your hand, so you have your 4 again. And then the battle lore, I guess those are command cards, sorry, I misspoke. But the battle lore is a little different. You have a couple options. You can, A, draw 2 battle lore tokens. And that's for those that don't come across these, where you get to draw battle lore. You can just draw 2 BattleLore tokens, or you can draw 1 BattleLore token and 1 card, and then if you get up to 4, you have to discard, or up to 5 I guess, you have to discard back down to 4. Or your third option is you can draw 2 new BattleLore cards add them to your hand, and then discard one card from your hand, or more if you need to downgrade back down to 4. Another keynote on these BattleLore cards, the price is indicated in the top corner. That's how much you have to spend for them, and you can only use one of them per turn. So you can't just overwhelm them with a bunch of BattleLore things reinforcing you. 1 per turn is the limit. The way the victory works is the first player has this token. It comes back into play. If the first player scores 16 points on their turn, then it proceeds to the second player's turn. They have a chance to best the first person by either tying or beating them. If they beat them, the second player wins. If they tie, the first player gets to go again, and it continues till the tie is broken on the second player's turn, essentially giving the second player the same amount of turns as the first player. If the second player does get victory conditions on their turn, then the game is over, because everyone had equal amount of turns, and that just ends the game. So that is the amazing BattleLore. That's enough information. You should be able to get out there and start having fun, and then use the quick reference as needed. I hope you do have fun. This game is a blast. Happy crusading, and we'll talk to you next time.